Hello. Welcome. Pull up a chair. Come closer. Get comfortable. Welcome. I'm Marcus Pibworth, and I'm so happy you're here. Stories for Men is a real passion project of mine. It's about getting men together to listen to stories and to use myth and folk tales and fairy tales to create a space where we can be vulnerable and share, delve deeper into our own stories, and also to have a think together what a more expansive and healthy concept of masculinity could be for ourselves and for society. This first session I recorded in September 2020 with a group of men, and I chose the Russian Fairytale, The Speedy Messenger. I just love this story. The first time I heard it, it really grabbed me with everything it had. I mean, in some ways it's a typical hero's journey, but in other ways I think it's a really different story from most other stories that I've heard, and I hope you enjoy it too. The sessions were about an hour and a half long, and they took the form of me telling the story and then interspersed with group discussions, and so I've broken it up into what I think is 3 more manageable chunks. So welcome to part 1. First I'll tell the story, then you'll listen to a bit of the discussion there, but I want you to be part of this discussion as well, so feel free to drop me an email, or on this platform the podcast is hosted by Anchor, and you can actually leave voice messages there, which would be lovely to receive some from you. So please sit back, relax, and get stuck in. And without further ado, here is the Russian fairy tale, The Speedy Messenger. Okay, so I want us all now to close our eyes. Close our eyes. And I want us to leave our living rooms, leave our bedrooms, leave our kitchens, leave our offices, and travel across gardens and streets, across fields, through woodland and forest. Over seas and oceans, hills and mountains, until we find ourselves, when we open our eyes, at a small hut in the middle of a swamp in neither my time nor your time. And in that hut, there lives an old man, a poor old man, and his 3 sons. The eldest, Ivan, the middle, Vasily, and the youngest son, little Semyon. Their house is in the swamp, and around the swamp runs a circular road. Many pilgrims and travellers pass this way. But that road is so long it takes them not 1 year, not even 2 years, but 3 years to pass around that swamp. One day, the father said to his 3 sons, I want to do something about this. I want to help those pilgrims and travellers. I want to help them by building a new road, which will mean it will not take them 3 years. It will not even take them 2 years. Or 1 year, it will take them just 3 days to pass this way. Well, the sons thought this was a good idea, and immediately they all set about dredging some of the swamp, chopping down trees to build beautiful white hazel bridges over the rivers that were in the way. They worked so hard. And finally, after all that work was done, they had completed this beautiful road. When the morning came, the father said to his 3 sons, "I am proud of our work, as are you, but I want to know what other people are saying. I want to know what the people that are using this road are saying. I want you to go out and find whether they are saying things good or if they are saying things evil." Father pointed to his eldest, Ivan, and sent him out. Ivan went and he hid under one of those white hazel bridges and he waited. He waited. He heard footsteps that stopped just above the place that he was hiding. It was 2 venerable old hermits. "Oh, what a fabulous road this is! It's saving us so much time, just 3 days. If we could meet the people that made this, then we would give them any gift that they so desired." That was Ivan's cue. He got up. "It was I, Ivan, my father and 2 brothers that built this road." "Ah, thank you, young man. And what gift can we bestow upon you?" Ivan thought for a moment or 2. "Riches. I would like riches enough that I don't have to want for the rest of my life." "Very well," said the old hermits. "Go back to your father's property and on the way you'll see a fine oak tree. Dig down. Underneath the roots of that oak tree you'll find a chest. In that chest you'll find gold, silver, and gems of all colours, enough to last you for the rest of your life." Ivan immediately headed back. He stopped, he dug, he found the chest, and he went back to his father's house. And he told his father of what the old men had said about the road and showed him the riches, and they were happy. Now the next day came, and the father said, "Well, we're happy with our road. Those 2 old men yesterday were happy with our road, but I still want to know, what are other people saying about our road? Are they saying things good or are they saying things evil?" So he sent his 2nd son, Vasily. Vasily went out and he too hid under the white hazel bridge. He waited for those footsteps. Sure enough, they came. 2 more venerable old men. "If only we could know who built this way, we would give them any gift that they so desired." Out came Vasily. "It was I, my 2 brothers and my father that built this road." And so the 2 venerable old men asked him what gift he desired. Vasily thought for a moment. "Bread. I want bread enough so me and my family need never go hungry again for the rest of our lives." "Very well," said the hermits. "Go back to your father's house and behind it set out a fresh piece of land and sow it with seeds. That will grow into grain and you can harvest it and you shall not go hungry ever again." Vasily thanked them, headed back to his father's house, told him what the 2 old men had said about the road, and started to plot out a fresh piece of land. Now, the 3rd day came, and in stories things always happen in 3s. And the father said, "Okay, we're happy. Those first lot of men were happy. Yesterday the people were happy. But I still want to know more what people are saying. Are they saying things good or evil?" And so this time he sent out his youngest, little Semyon. Little Semyon went out, and he too hid under the bridge. And as before, 2 venerable old men came, praising the road and offering a gift if only they could meet them. It was I, little Semyon, my father and 2 brothers that built this road. Very well, and what gift would you like us to bestow upon you? Without even a beat, little Semyon looked up to those 2 old men. I want to be a soldier in the king's army. We cannot grant you this. Anything else. Money, riches, women, anything. This is too hard. If we grant you this, your life will be really, really hard. You will weep. You will weep so much. You will be held captive by a sea king. Your life will not be easy. Little Semyon stood. He looked up to them. You 2 holy men know better than most that he who does not weep in this world must weep in the next. You're right, they said. And it is honourable for you to want to go and fight for our sovereign, and so we will grant it to you. However, we will give you something extra. We will give you the power to transform yourself into 3 animals to help you on your way. At that, almost instantaneously, little Semyon changed into a magnificent stag with antlers running up into the sky. A magnificent animal. That fleet-footed stag leapt across the field, back around his father's house. His father and 2 brothers saw this stag and they frantically tried to catch it, but they could not. And before they knew it, little Semyon was back in front of the 2 old men. And as soon as he arrived back, he changed from a stag into a hare, his ears rising up, his strong back legs, and off he bounded across the field, back to his father's house, round and around. First a stag and now a hare. The father and the brothers ran around trying to catch it. It was too fast and they could not. And the hare ran back to the venerable old men. And finally, he changed from a hare into a little bird with a golden head. And that little bird flew and flew in through the window of the father's house. The father and his 2 brothers frantically tried to catch this bird as it flew around, but they could not. And little Semyon was back out the window as the bird, back to the hermits, where he resumed his human form. Now, you are ready. You are ready to go on your journey to the king's palace. And that is where we will leave little Semyon now, standing on the threshold, about to set off on his journey to the palace. I'd just like to, before we jump into something, we can close our eyes and take some deep breaths and try for the moment to stay in our hearts, that stay in a creative space and not get sort of too intellectual, and just try and bring in out of our body some of those images, some of the images from the story that stuck there. So maybe it's the father and the sons at work, maybe it's hiding under the bridge, maybe it's the conversation with the hermits, the different animals, and breathe. Let's take 2 deep breaths, and then whoever feels called to say one of those images that came up. Okay, let's do a deep breath together.
Well, I just wish that I could have you sitting on the end of my bed every night. That was fantastic. Thank you. I love your storytelling, Marcus. It's beautiful. I just found little Semyon and his wisdom. I mean, I guess it's wisdom. It sounds like it's wisdom. It just, yeah, I found it very real. It felt very real. It felt like he really knew something about life that his brothers weren't necessarily connected to, and he felt like he was the most human and heart-centered characters, and I'm perplexed by his animal attributes that he now can access. I'm very curious to know what happens there and how it helps him.
I think one of the images that gets me, it's like quite the saddening thought of the two brothers hiding under the bridge in this like desperate need for recognition, because they've done a great thing, but for them it's more important that they get appreciation for it, they receive accolades, and not the fact that they've done something great and good thing done. It's then the next step. It's like, we need people to appreciate us, we need to receive things, and then obviously like the greed comes in, and it's quite a saddening situation, and very like true to life. It's not, we've done something and let's carry on. It's, we've done something, now we need reward. And I think that's quite a sad reality in a way. It's just one of the things that hit me, I think.
I thought well, I like how we're talking about it kind of in the middle. At least I hope it's the middle, because I also want to find out what happens. But the father's words, it's an interesting choice of words for me. Really stuck to me. Let's find out what people are saying about this bridge. Let's find out if they're speaking good or evil. It was like, it's an interesting way to put it. It's not like, hey, do they like this bridge? Do they have some complaints? Do they say it's a crappy bridge? No, it's, do they speak good or evil? So that's just an interesting, I don't know. I don't even know, I don't want to interpret that. It's just sticking to me because it's interesting phrasing, and it somehow draws my attention to like the idea of speaking good or speaking evil about somebody or to somebody, and people being worried about that and what effect that might have. It's interesting as part of the story. And little Semyon, yeah, or maybe I'm saying his name wrong, but I felt sad. I felt bad for him, actually. There was this idea of, if we don't weep now, we have to weep in the next life. It's just that whole, it's like the suffering is inevitable, I need to get it over with type attitude. And I felt I don't know, I felt a little bit sad about that. Thanks.
I was wondering particularly about the gifts or the rewards and sort of riches and buried treasure, and then he's sorted for life. But bread, something to sustain oneself, and he's given the means to sustain himself rather than just a shitload of bread. And also, why is treasure, why are riches always buried? And why do they need to be hidden? And why are they sequestered? And it makes me think about things like oil and things that are almost like too rich to be discovered, and as a result need to be obscured. So I noticed those two different things, but then also, yeah, like little Semyon, as people have been saying, is the only one with a calling, like, as such. It's interesting that they try and put him off his calling and like test his belief as well. Almost like, that'll hurt a lot. Yeah, so I'm interested to find out how these skills and attributes come in handy for Semyon, and also, yeah, to discover more about maybe the fates of the other two brothers and the difference between like, settling for life or for wealth as opposed to, having absurd dreams that put you at great risk. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting point you make about the three different types of reward, if you like. I don't know whether it's my Britishness or not, but just when I heard you mentioning it there, I just thought about the class system that we have in the UK, and the youngest son obviously represented working class, and then the bread, the middle classes, and then the aristocracy with just untold riches. But I don't know, maybe I'm reading a bit too much into that. But I thought when you talked about hiding under bridges, I thought it was going to go down a troll route. I thought, because that's, I don't know, again, might be a typically British thing. It's a fairy tale or story that is told. But no, fascinating. And I love your intonation and the way it's delivered, Marcus. I think that adds to the dramatic effect. So it's now I'm excited for part two. Thank you.
I would like to comment to Rodri's observation that it's only little Semyon that has a calling. I think actually I think the father had a calling as well. The father who has this vision of building the new road. So I don't think little Semyon is the only one with a calling. But of course, the father wants to know what the feedback is on his new bridge and the new road. And I was wondering that as well, because a pilgrimage doesn't need to be easy. Doesn't have to be a 3-day trip. I think maybe the long way around the swamp of 3 years is actually what pilgrimage is all about. And maybe the shortcut it might be very comfortable, but that's maybe not what the pilgrimage is about. That was a bit my hesitation to whether the road was an improvement or not.
Yeah, thank you, Marcus. Beautiful story. I love the way you told it as well, and really great to hear. It's so interesting. Just a room full of men and such different things catch our eye as well, which is curious. The thing that sort of stood out for me is maybe is slightly odd is that, because it's probably meant to be, but this is like just a totally masculine universe, full of a father and 3 sons, and no mention of a mother, and all of the pilgrims are men, and it's this male wisdom and male advice, and there's a sense of like duty from the sons towards the father. And I think what Dominic said about pilgrimages and this idea of devotion, it all feels very very masculine and very religious. So yeah, I guess I don't have anything more than that, but I'm curious to see where the story's heading to.
I'm also very curious where the story is going to be led. But for me, it's most surprising thing was the second gift, second question, that he asked for work, that he asked for bread, and he became a field where he can continue working. And this is not goal. This is not serving in an army. It's I found it like most surprising thing on a story, and I'm very curious how it goes further with this second son. This who stays at home, is not sitting with gold, and is not traveling around, but in his sweat and blood, he is chasing the bread.
So fascinating to hear the comments. So many interesting insights. It's a fascinating story, Marcus. Thank you. The bit that stood out to me visually, I loved it, was the father and the 2 elder sons trying to catch the 3 animals that young Semyon turned into. And one that was just visually, it was a lovely thought, and you told it really well. But also symbolically, it seemed like, okay, this is what are they doing there? Are they trying to catch hold of his spirit, or trying to keep him safe, keep him there? And that was interesting to me, listening to all other thoughts as well that are coming in. So I'm very curious where this is going, and yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I had a similar sort of thought to Sid, really, about them trying to catch the younger son, and the sort of metaphor of lots of different ways to be a man, and often those ways can be tried to be sort of suppressed or caught and, you know, caged. So yeah, I really like that idea of being free and there being many different ways, but also just really interested in the insecurity and the need for validation from the father after all their work. So yeah, just can't wait for the next bit.
Yeah, I find these stories really interesting, and I've told this story like numerous times, and I've spent a lot of time reflecting on it, and still like a lot of these things that have come up are things which hadn't been my angle of looking at it and things like that. And I think that's where they're so rich, and I think they're also rich the way that they come down, they're sort of passed down. And like this one itself is from Russian Fairytales, which is by Alexander, I always get his name wrong, Afanasyev, who was a contemporary of the Grimms and like Hans Christian Andersen. So where the Grimms are collecting theirs in Germany, he was collecting them in Russia. And so they're of a time, they're obviously sort of, I guess these people have their own, often like, you know, they often sort of Christianize all these sort of tales, these sort of things. And I think in a way they're products of different times. So some of the stuff is contentious, some of the stuff is downright frustrating, some of it is outrageous, like for us. And then another level, there's some currents which are sort of on a more metaphorical level, maybe, that sort of transcend all that. And they and I think it's important to pick out things like that, to pick out like why are there like at the moment no women in it, and what does that mean, like and why, if a woman, what is, when the woman does come in, what does she represent, these sort of things. And also to see like actually like this is that's on a literal level, but who are these people inside of me, like who are these sort of inside of my like consciousness, like where is, like, do I have that like sort of, I don't know, do I have a demanding father? Do I have a like venerable old man? Do I have like someone that just wants riches, and, you know, all these things? And I guess that's a nice sort of just to cross into, I think, like, I mean, we won't stay too long in this section. We'll go into the story again and then stop again in a bit. But I think it would be nice just to sort of like maybe spend a few minutes, have a few people jump in to see, like, did you see yourself in the story? Did any of those characters feel too close to home or completely alien? Like, if anyone has any of those, any reflections on that, I for one would be very interested.
Yeah, I think that's why Simon's suggestion that if I don't weep now, I have to weep in the next life made me feel sad. I think there's a part of me that identifies with this idea that we have to suffer. There's a part of me that is like, feels like I somehow can't access enough joy in my life because life is hard, and life is, I have to be a soldier, and, you know, I have to fight, you know, and that like feels like a burden. It feels like, yeah, that inevitable suffering. There is a part of me that, you know, I don't know how big this part of me is. It might be small, but I can feel inside. There's a part of me that resonates with that.
Yeah, I really resonate with that thought. In fact, it's interesting now that David's spoken about it, because I think there is this element, maybe the part that stood out to each one of us for whatever reason, there's a connection there. And for me, the part of the father and the two brothers trying to catch these creatures, which for me represented free spirit. And there's a part of me that feels like that with my own family. And I know they're really well-meaning, they're hardworking, and they've done all the right things. But I feel this strong conflict with them. I felt this strong conflict with them all my life around sort of evading or fighting, being captured into this safe world. And I felt that very strongly. I resonate with that so much.
I'm there with the father. I'm the one who wants to know what people say. If people are saying good or evil for things I have done. And I have done something and I want to know, do they like it or do they not? And one of you said that we should not care. When it's done, and we move farther. And that is a good point, because then if it happens, then it's great. Because then you are really self-conscious of what you have done, because you don't need the others to tell you, wow, good one, you did well. But so this is what is the calling for me. I feel like the father, I would do it. I would say, I would not go myself there under the bridge. I would say to my sons, go and listen for me, and then come tell me what do the people say.
I really resonated, especially with what you said, David, regarding little Semyon. I think for me, in terms of where I identify, is definitely split between the two siblings who are not little Semyon and little Semyon. I think I don't know what it was about my upbringing, but something in my kind of millennial upbringing with maybe this very subtle unconscious sense of entitlement that I grew up with, that I think I had this sense of like, oh yeah, once I've got all these life hacks like down, I'm just going to be soaring through life with all my achievements and my medals and my money, and I'm also going to have a life of meaning, and it's just going to be, I'm just sitting there with my endless bread supply, in my fantasy world, or gold or gems. But then, reality hitting and acquiring maybe a fraction of the wonderful wisdom that little Semyon has, and just being like, wow, oh, okay, so maybe the question I should be asking is, what's worth suffering for? Because right now, life's pretty fucking tough. And I don't know, I still find myself kind of having fantasies of grandeur and, wanting to be in some other place than where I'm at. And actually, like little Semyon, he's got it, he's really got it. And yeah, I can feel it as a battle within me, the siblings.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point, and it's quite funny how it leads from one step to another, because you'll see the first brother, he just wants riches, which I think similar to what you say, as you're growing up, everyone just thinks you need money. Like, you need money, that's what you need to do. You earn money if you can get it for free. Happy days. And then the next one, it's like the next calling is you need the comfort of having food accessible, so you have no worries. And then I think with the third one, it sort of depends how you interpret little Semyon's desire to join the army. Because it's one side, it's like he's got this calling that he's found and he really wants to do it, which would be very impressive. Like, he's thinking, like, this is for me, this is where I want to go in life. But then on the other side of it, someone said it earlier, interpret about he needs to suffer to go through. So I kind of depends, if it's his calling and that's where he wants to go, then it's something I would like to find, like, and everyone's kind of searching for, because the riches, yeah, it's very good, it makes life very comfortable, it's easy, but it's not necessarily particularly satisfying. So if I interpret little Semyon like he's found his calling, and it's like somewhere something I would like to get to, and it's really interesting, and for me more meaningful by a long way than the other two. But obviously we will see where the story goes.
Well, thank you very much for joining the first part of Stories for Men, the Speedy Messenger. At this point, do feel free to head over to my website, marcuspibworth.com, and on there you can also support my work through the platform Buy Me a Coffee if you feel you've got value out of this. But now, without further ado, do head over to part 2 of the Speedy Messenger. See you there.